Welcome back, everyone, to Find Music, the never-ending quest to, oh yeah, find music. Okay, I got it. This is episode 219. Fred cannot be with us today, so taking over the lead spot, we got Murray Thomas.
Okay, well, I am going to finally finish something I started about a month ago when I was going through my vinyl records. So we are going to see the part of my vinyl collection, my massive vinyl collection here, that I inherited from my parents. But first, I need to tell a little story about my parents' record collection. They, at the end, it was it had gotten winnowed down. I remember certain albums that were no longer there. I'm not sure where they went, but after my parents passed away, I grabbed what I wanted, which again is right here, and then we had an estate sale. And after the estate sale, there was still a box of albums left. And in the town there in Naples, New York, there was a little music shop that mostly did musical instruments, but they had a certain amount of vinyl for sale. So I took this random box in and asked, if there's anything in it they might be interested in. And they're like, well, the owner, the guy who actually makes those decisions, isn't here. So why don't you leave the box and your phone number and he'll call you when he makes the decision. Well, eventually he called me and he's like, okay, that was a very interesting collection of records you gave me. Were your parents in the movie business by any chance? Which in fact they were. They made travel movies. And I'm like, well, yeah, they were. He's like, okay, that helps explain it. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to sell any of these, but I'm fascinated by this collection. So I'll pay you $20 for it just so I can keep them. So, and it was things like, my parents made a movie about France. So apparently there are a whole bunch of French instrumental music records in there and stuff like that. So that's a little story about that. But these are the ones that I decided to take. So we'll just go through them and get some sense of my parents' musical taste. We start out with David Bromberg, Demon in Disguise. Great album. Has certainly my favorite version of Mr. Bojangles ever, because he tells the story of how Jerry Jeff Walker, who wrote the song, met Mr. Bojangles in the drunk tank. And that's where that song came from. And it's got like fiddle music and the song Demon in Disguise. It's a great album. You should look it up. What do we got next here? Oh, we have the soundtrack to Easy Rider.
Your parents got that record?
My parents had this record.
Nice.
Wow.
With Steppenwolf and the Birds and the Electric Prunes.
No way. Oh yeah. On the album, yeah.
They had interesting taste. Another classic, Alice's Restaurant. Absolute classic indeed. If there's anyone out there who has not heard Alice's Restaurant, which seems impossible this day and age, because somewhere it gets played every single Thanksgiving on some radio station that you're probably listening to, but real classic. Janis Ian, her first album, which includes the song Society's Child, which she wrote at 17. Which, if you don't know, is about interracial dating, and this is like 1967 that this came out, and it actually became a hit because the radio stations wouldn't play it, the record company wouldn't promote it, but the Smothers Brothers put her on their show and had her play the song, and that's how people got introduced to it.
Side note, 1967, the year that interracial marriage was legalized in the United States.
That's
Really?
true. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. It was illegal before that?
Yep.
Yes.
In certain states. In
Holy
certain
cow.
states.
I had no idea that was the case.
Yep. Loving versus Virginia. 1.
Peter, Paul, and Mary.
2. 3 Peter, Paul, and Mary albums, and I'm sure they had more too at one point or other. But they were big fans of Peter, Paul, and Mary. They were into folk music. They were very much into folk music, and they were into politics and all that. So there we have some good, solid Peter, Paul, and Mary. One of my mother's actually favorite bands, the Mamas and the Papas. This is a collection, like two discs of, well, a combination of their greatest hits and also like studio outtakes and things like that. Very interesting collection. Great songs of the 60s. Now this is this is an interesting collection. Well, it's not K-Tel.
No.
Who did put this out? 3 records set. New York Times. New York Times. Because half the songs on here are the original versions, like Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by DJ Thomas, Do You Believe in Magic by The Loving Spoonful, San Francisco, Wear Flowers in Your Hair by Scott McKenzie, Little Boxes by Pete Seeger, Suzanne by Leonard Cohen. And then the other half, and I'm sure this all has to do with licensing and what that, are covers of, again, by well-known people, but not the one, like there's a whole side of pretty much of Frank Sinatra songs that none of which are sung by Frank Sinatra. So it's kind of interesting, but it's actually a really good collection of for the pop stuff, you know. Like I say, Windmills of Your Mind, Strangers in the Night, Love Theme from Romeo and Juliet.
Who does Strangers in the Night on that album? Who's the
Strangers in the Night is done by Bert Kempfert, which I guess, okay, here it said he was one of the writers.
Oh, Paul Revere and the Raiders.
No, one of the writers.
Oh, writers.
He wrote the song, yeah.
Strangers in the Night.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
It is interesting, yeah.
Cool.
So, but again, you know, I kind of wish I had a working turntable right now so I could sample through that. Okay. Oh, speaking of politics.
There you go. Wow. Wow.
Yep. Radio Free Nixon. No, I think this is the one. He's got David Fry as the voices of Richard Nixon, Henry Fonda, George C. Scott, Lyndon Johnson, Billy Graham, David Susskind, William Buckley, Spiro Agnew, Truman Capote, Howard Cosell, Nelson Rockefeller, and Hubert Humphrey. One guy. This one is the one where there was that George C. Scott calls up Nixon. And because there was a rumor that Nixon decided to invade Cambodia immediately after watching Patton.
Oh.
Okay, that was going around. So George C. Scott calls up Richard Nixon and to ask him about this. And then at the end of the conversation, George C. Scott says, "So have you seen any other movies? For example, have you seen Dr. Strangelove?" It's like, "Oh, no, I haven't seen that one." And George C. Scott says, "Well, do yourself and everyone else a favor and don't go see it." Very funny album. Okay, now we're getting into Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht, Three Penny Opera. Now, can either of you tell me what very, very famous song is on this album? Mac the Knife.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yep.
The #1 song when I was born.
Wow. Okay, so that's something else I wish I could look into. Okay, one of my there's 2 favorite artists, Leadbelly.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
What's the label on that?
The label is Verve Folkways.
Nice.
Yeah. So
good vinyl.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. They kind of a random selection of songs, but I mean, the
album covers look like they're in good shape too. All of them.
Yeah. They didn't. This stuff didn't get played much after, like, I don't know, after my parents, after we left, after the kids moved out, my parents didn't play their music collection much. And we didn't, as kids, we played a lot of the Peter, Paul, and Mary. And I mean, they also had Simon and Garfunkel. And I mean, one of their other more interesting ones is they had a Grateful Dead album. They had the soundtrack to Hair. So they had a pretty interesting collection. So that's this. I'm pretty sure this may have some value to it. It's a nice quality, good album. And then finally, Dick Spiderbeck, trumpet player from the 20s, pre-Louis Armstrong. Is probably the big hero trumpet player before Louis Armstrong came along.
What's the copyright date on that album?
This album is,
If you don't see it on the cover, it'll be on the inside label. Yeah.
Wow, look at that label.
Let's
That's
see.
an old album label.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
This says, looks like it says 65. So,
Wow.
but maybe it says 55, and I need to get my magnifying glass for that. One interesting fact about Dick Spiderbeck is that he almost was a member of the 27 Club. I guess he actually made it to 28. I guess in the 20s, musicians didn't realize if they're going to die, they were supposed to die at 27. So he made it 28. Basically died from alcohol abuse. One of the early victims of the rock and roll lifestyle, even if it was before rock and roll. So there we have it, the second half of Murray's record collection, Murray's vinyl collection. My parents, the stuff I took from my parents' collection.
Nice. You know, if you can tell, I mean, if you walk into somebody's house and you look at the books on the shelf,
yeah,
you could get a kind of an interesting personality profile. Same thing with records, and that really does provide a great view of who your parents were.
Yeah, it does. It does.
You're a lucky guy. I'm going to toss in a couple stories here on my own here. Jerry Jeff Walker and Mr. Bojangles. I saw him at the Palomino in Hollywood. He opened up for Asleep at the Wheel.
Oh wow!
And it was the first time I'd ever. I love Asleep at the Wheel, by the way, and it was the first time I'd ever seen Jerry Jeff Walker. The only time, and that was a show where Herb Villechaize was in the audience, and he looks at me, and I'm standing there next to him, and he was really little, short. And the very first thing he does, he goes, "Don't pick me up! Don't pick me up!" I wasn't going to pick him up or anything. I just want to shake his hand. Anyway, so Jerry Jeff Walker ends his show, and somebody comes from the audience and starts a physical fist fight with them right there on the stage. They roll to the back of the stage and then leave out the back door. And to this day, I don't know if he just wanted to avoid an encore or he had a time limit or what, but it was a really interesting way to end somebody's show.
Wow.
Okay. And then the Easy Rider album. This is a weird story. I saw Easy Rider when it first came out at the Compton Drive-In.
Wow.
Okay. I think it was 1968 or 67.
Yeah.
Right around there. I was in either the 7th grade or the 8th grade, and my mom was between husbands at the time. And she was dating a guy named Dewey Weber, who turns out to have been this really famous surfboard dude, So I got taken to see Easy Rider at the Compton Drive-In with my mom and Dewey Weber. Is that weird or what?
That is. Wow.
So I love seeing the albums, and that's a great soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
That is a great soundtrack. Man. Have you ever seen Easy Rider, Don? You seen the movie?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool.
I didn't see it till probably some point in the last 10 years or so before.
Well, to me, it's too bad. It's a tragedy that there's no sequel, but as it turned out.
It'd be kind of hard, yeah.
They blow up at the end. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey. Thank you, Murray. That was 219. I think I'm going to call it the vinyl collection I inherited from my parents. It's such a catchy title.
There you go. Yeah, nice.
All right.